Drivers behind the line.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to season 4 Behind the Lines, where we're bringing the experts to you. I'm Ruth Toomey, and joining me tonight from RoboSports Network is Matt Stark. And this week, we're going to be discussing what your FIRST team can do to improve your social media outreach. Tonight, we're having a presentation from FIRST Robotics Competition Team 3847, Spectrum, who are the Engineering Inspiration Award winners at the Hub City Regional and Chairman's Award winner at the Alamo Regional this past season.
Before we hand it off to our experts, we should mention that the views expressed by Behind the Lines and by our hosts and the guests are of the individual and don't necessarily reflect those views of FIRST or FIRST participants.
And audience, don't forget that you can submit questions to us throughout the show by tweeting at RoboSportsNet with hashtag FRCBTL, by post or message on our Facebook page, or by typing !Q into the Twitch stream chat.
With that, we're really excited to have our experts from Spectrum here with us today. Let's let them introduce ourselves. Sue Ann, why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Sue Ann. I'm the marketing mentor for Spectrum.
Hi, I'm Alan Gregory. I'm the head coach for Spectrum.
Excellent. We're so excited to have you guys here today with us. I think we're going to kick it straight into the presentation. Take it away, guys.
Awesome. All right, so today we're going to be talking about how we use social media on our team and what we use it for, and kind of how you guys can use it on your teams to better promote FIRST, make it loud, all of those types of things. And we're going to keep going. So one of the first things that we want to talk about, kind of before you even think about getting on Twitter or Facebook, you kind of want to know, who are you talking to, right? Your audience is going to be important. If you want to just be talking to yourself, you can have your own little journal and do that. That's great. But when you're going to be putting it out to the public, you want to make sure you know who you're going to be talking to. And there are going to be a lot of different goals for you talking to. So one of the people, a lot of what we end up doing is we push out stuff for people directly related to our team, but we just share it publicly. So we'll generate a lot of stuff for our team members, our parents, mentors, alumni, that we want to make sure those people who really care about our team are getting information, but that there's no reason that information can't go out to everyone else as well.
And so what I work on is I work on the greater community. So if we're at an event, I'll work on whatever local event that we're at, the Houston, the media and potential and current sponsors. And public officials.
Right. So this is one of the places where you have access to not only your school or your local community, you can reach much farther. You can reach across, reach across oceans, other countries. You can interact with teams. You can interact with other media, celebrities, a lot of different people that you can start talking to. So kind of figuring out where you really want to be and where you're going to focus your message is important. But if you're already doing something, so if you're already sending, emails back and forth across your team that say, hey, look at this cool video, maybe a lot of other teams or other people would be interested in that. Just post it to Twitter, post it to Facebook. You can use a lot of the same content you already have, and you can make it to a different audience as well. And that's a lot of how we generate our stuff. Thinking of content, one of the things that you have to do is once you have these social media accounts, like a lot of teams have them, a lot of them are basically dormant. They don't use them. And that's okay, but eventually people aren't going to follow you. You're not going to get a lot of feedback, and you're not going to get a lot of benefit if you're not actually actively participating in the communities that you're joining. So you have to kind of make some choices about which ones you want to be, and we'll talk about some tips and tricks you can do to kind of be involved in some communities, even if you're not actively using those apps. You can kind of automate some things too. We'll get to that in a little bit later. But it's really a daily practice, and it's what's nice about being as a team. You should be able to have multiple people. Some teams just go, oh, that's the social media person. They handle all of it. It's probably not going to work very well, right? Especially if it's a mentor or even as a student, they're going to have either work or schoolwork, other responsibilities. They're not going to be there all the time. So we try to make sure that we have multiple people who can tweet out stuff, who can do stuff on Facebook, who can be generating content, that we have other people, maybe they're better at actually communicating it out to the world, besides for just people who are actually generating it.
And so we'll ask a lot of the students what they like, and one of them came up and like, let's do a time lapse of what it was like, and we were in IRI in the pit. So we did an entire time lapse, sped that up, and then posted it, and a lot of people really, really enjoyed that post.
Some of the content can go from things that are very mundane, right? So everybody has a phone. You can install the Twitter app on most of them. Anybody has a smartphone. They can be tweeting out photos, or Instagram. They can be sending out photos. That kind of stuff is great. You can keep your parents, alumni stuff updated like that. You can also get to the point where you're creating more meaningful content. So one of the things we have is we worked on this summer was a video called #LiveRobots. I think we can show that right now. And so this video that should be coming up is a bit more, definitely more work intensive. It was a whole team effort. We had multiple people involved in figuring out exactly how we wanted to run the script. We got inspired by another video that we saw on YouTube. We kind of modified the script. We had multiple people working on that. We had multiple people figuring out which shots we wanted to use, how we wanted to do some of the video. We actually got video specifically at one of the events for it. So it was a big team effort, basically saying we need to get this right and get it ready so we can use this as kind of our front page video for a lot of our Facebook feed and our YouTube channel, and for a lot of other things where we wanted to make sure we had something that not just people in the FRC community could see, but also parents, alumni, potential new students, and also just the general public could see and kind of get an idea of why we think it's important and why we dedicate ourselves to this. And that was kind of the mission of this, and it was definitely a much bigger effort. But we started a long time ago with something much smaller than an entire video production.
And so you can see from the video that it's been taken from an outreach event where we were at a Super Bowl event that we were taking at different tournaments we're at inside the lab. Right.
So there's shots in there from all the way back when we were, just happened to be taking photo and video in 2013. But we've collected all of that media. We've held it. We'll get to that a little bit later too, and like how we collect and store a lot of our media so we can use it later. But those types of things, you can get to the point where you can be producing real content that's specifically designed as like a marketing media outreach. But even stuff that you may just have that you're doing in your lab, if you find something cool, like we've had blog posts about specific bolts that go into the VersaPlanetary, even some very nuanced specific robot things, you'll definitely find a market for. There are people who are very interested in specific robot things, in how to do video and how to do anything involved in FRC. You'll find people who want to read and who want to engage you on those topics. One of the other things we do, and this is especially for teams who are hosting events, so if you're running FLL qualifiers or any other robot event, off seasons, Suan started producing a TRI social media kit for our off-season event this year. So it's actually able to get more teams involved. So it tells them, specifically which hashtags to use. We have a whole press release in there that they can submit to newspapers. So getting some of the old media stuff too, not just social media, involved as well. And just because a lot of teams just don't know. So the more we can educate them, the more we can make it easy for them to do stuff, the better we can all be involved and all help to get the word out. So content and audience are going to be your biggest things that you have to worry about at the front end. We're going to start talking a bit more specific about like the certain platforms that we use and how we use them, certain ones differently, and how we kind of connect them all together. So the first thing we actually started back in 2012 when I joined Spectrum was I knew I wanted to have a build blog. That was one of the things I brought to the team. By no means were we the first build blog. JVN on 148 and Jim Zondag on 33 and several other people had been doing build blogs. They'd release them after the season or some of them during the season. But it was one of the things that I thought was really useful, not just for being able to use it as a media outreach or being able to have other teams know about us or anything like that, but more that it allows everybody on the team to know exactly what's happening every day. So it was one of the things that I made sure our students helped with. And if we didn't have students write it, I would make sure I did it before I went to bed every night. That was one of the things I would just try to do. And it just really helps to have the parents and everybody doing it. And again, it's more of a tool to help our team get organized, but it ended up being where a lot more people were looking at it than we ever thought. And that's kind of where we started with the blog. It doesn't need to be anything complicated. I just went on the first thing I thought of, which was Blogger. I did not put a lot of thought into it back then. It's actually stayed on the same platform this whole time, just so we don't have to move it. But you could do it on WordPress if you have a website. And it's just a really good way to get out more information and keep a log and documentation of everything that you do. Because a lot of teams are doing really great work, but if 4 years from now, when you've graduated, your team doesn't remember that you did that, it's a lot harder for them to use it in either more media stuff or in awards or in anything else that they need to submit for any other documentation where they're going to need that. It also lets people follow along with their progress so they kind of know what's going on. You have people all around the world rooting for you, or they'll help give you advice if they think something maybe not working as well as it should. So we're a big fan of the blog process. It doesn't have to be a full build blog. There are teams who do wikis or Google Docs or any sort of way to just kind of document their process. And a lot of it, to be able to do social media well, is getting documentation first so that you have the photos, you have things to talk about, and then you can put that out to the world. The second thing that we started getting more involved in was Twitter, just because it was kind of fast and easy. We could do it on our phones, and we could still connect with a lot of people. So FRC has multiple Twitters that they use, the first official one and the FRC team's Twitter. Many teams. There's multiple lists where you can just go and interact with a lot of the direct FRC teams. A lot of schools now have them, so you may be able to interact with your school's Twitter account as well. But you can also interact with celebrities and local officials and personalities, which is one thing that we've been able to use a couple times where it may be kind of tricky. A lot of people are like, oh, how do you get on like the local news or something? Multiple times we've just ended up being, oh, we have this event coming up, and we tweeted at every news anchor in the area, and then eventually got it to where they'd be, oh, that's a really cool idea. You want to come to the studio? They had no idea who we were before, but if they're looking at their Twitter and they see somebody saying we have robots coming, they get interested.
And local officials like to follow us too, because then they see, oh, a bunch of kids, and we want to be involved with STEM. And
right. So that's a really good use of Twitter specifically, because you have those personalities all there, and it's easier to reach out to personal people on Twitter, since it's very open and easy to get to those type of personalities. One thing that's not on the slide, but Twitter does have live video too. We'll talk about live a couple different times, but that's another good way. Most of the platforms are promoting it more, so if you go live, it'll send out to a lot of the people who follow you. It'll kind of be elevated up on the timeline. It'll even get notifications. So if you're at an event, you can live stream from the stands. You could live stream matches. You can do a lot with that powerful tool, and you can pretty much do that on all of the platforms now. The other nice thing about Twitter is you can have multiple accounts very easily. So tweetdeck.twitter.com is our favorite tool. We have it open all the time, basically, when we're doing social media stuff. And it basically lets you have multiple accounts that you can tweet, retweet, favorite, everything you want from. So we'll have an account for our team. We'll have personal accounts, depending on when you log in or how you do it. We'll have whatever off-season event we're at. We'll have the account for that. So we can have multiple accounts ready to go, and we can be, getting it out there even further than just on the one team account.
And sometimes we'll follow whatever hashtag is trending. For instance, if we're in an event, we see that Throwback Thursday is trending, then, we may pull some old photos from the past couple of years and throw those up on site, and people like that, and they'll retweet it.
Right. It's very easy to create. You can create lists, so we can be following every team at an event that we're on or that we're at. We can be doing a lot more, and it's a lot more powerful than just the basic Twitter kind of web page or phone app. So if you can get on a PC and actually do it that way, you can have a pretty powerful command center for Twitter right there.
When we're at events, at regional events, most of the time we'll set up a whole little media center where we'll get photographers that come in from other teams and drop off photos, or we'll set up the tweet deck and run the social media for teams and for the event.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to do in off seasons when you can finagle. If you get to know the event directors and stuff and you can do it well, you can get a little bit more access. Regional is a little bit harder, but we'll often run it off phones. We'll tether a phone to a laptop or something if we need to get that same kind of power. Facebook's the next one. I do want to clear up a little bit of confusion because I've had multiple teams ask kind of how the best way to go about using Facebook, because there's so many different things you can have on Facebook. Ideally, for the most part, FRC teams are going to be best served having a Facebook page. That's kind of the default thing for corporations, organizations, etc. You don't really want to create a Facebook profile where it's like a person. There are some teams who do, but that gets a little awkward where you're friending other people as your team. That's not exactly what you really want to be doing. You really want to have a page where people can go in and they can get updates. It'll push into their news feed like it's supposed to. So the page is really where largely you want to focus. The other option is a group, which you'd want to use if you're going to use Facebook to communicate within your team. We used to do that. Turns out a lot of our students aren't on Facebook anymore, so we stopped. But the group is an option for that type of situation. But ideally, if you really want to be using it as a social platform to get the word out, the page is going to be your best bet. Facebook has another source for live video, so you can very easily post live video from any phone or any relatively new smartphone if you have a good internet connection. You can start going live at events in the same way you can do it with Twitter. Another thing we've started using a lot more, which has been a very big success, is making sure that any of the events we have, from our off-season to our FLL event, is getting them to have Facebook event pages, because we find that it actually gets notified. People get notified on their calendar. They can RSVP for it really easily. And it's been a pretty useful service that we started just about this year. We didn't really have it before then. We just weren't using it. Another topic that we'll touch on a little bit here, and we've just kind of started experimenting with it, is actually paying to promote posts on Facebook. One, they make it super easy. There's a reason why they make so much money on ad revenue, because they make it very, very easy to pay to make an ad. But we've done it for a few of our events, basically trying to get more people to come. So for our off-season event, where we wanted the general public to be able to come, or like our school community, you can specifically target people in Houston who have an interest in robotics, and you can pay $1 a day or something for a week or two. And then it'll generate, tens of thousands of impressions pretty quickly by actually having them as sponsored posts in people's news feeds. We'll talk a little bit about the demographics and who that brings in, but when you're talking about getting more adults to kind of be able to grab their kids and come to an event, that's a pretty good way to do it. And we saw pretty good engagement on ads like that were not a lot of money. And then also, after we paid once, Facebook started giving us like free money, where they're like, here, promote this you have $10 in your thing and you can just do it. And I was like, okay, I guess that's even better. So I don't know if that happens for everybody, but we've definitely gotten extra stuff just because we did it once. And I think they try to get you to keep paying for more ads. But it's not something you have to do. We've literally just started within the last 6 months or so, doing it occasionally for like the bigger events that we do, not really for our team stuff, but really for the off seasons and things like that. Okay, so Instagram is another social media platform, right? We're going to talk about some of the others and kind of like where to actually decide to be. But Instagram has a pretty big following, and you'll get a lot more. It's very specific for photos and short videos. It has a lot of the same features that Snapchat does, where you can have stories. You can send things that'll disappear after a day. And you can also do a lot more creative things with the filters and Boomerang, where you have like the short little GIFs, videos moving back and forth, and you can put photo collages. You can do a lot of things very creatively, relatively quickly with their tools. You can also do live video as well. So it's just another place you can be to get more photos, more videos out. Some people spend a lot more of their time on Instagram than they do on Facebook. So you're just trying to figure out where you want to be able to post stuff to get the most attention. One of the things I don't like about Instagram personally is you can't put links in any of your posts. So if we're trying to get people to go to an event or something, it gets a lot harder when you can't just tell them to go to an RSVP link or to watch a longer video or something like that. So that gets a little bit trickier. But you definitely can use it well. And you also can't automate posts to Instagram. So when we talk about automation in just a second, all of our stuff starts at Instagram and then goes other places. Okay, so those three are like our main ones that we choose to use, but there are countless ones, and I'm almost certain there's probably some new thing that I don't know about. I can only imagine there always is. So there's ones that we've kind of dabbled in, we've done a few little things, but we've never put in anywhere near as much effort as a team as we have into Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So LinkedIn is the professional social network, so that's where most people are going, where they're talking about getting jobs and things, but there's a huge area there to potentially get mentors and sponsors, because that's where a lot of people who are working at corporations and a lot of engineers are. So there's a lot of potential to do more there in the social media realm. Snapchat is where a lot more of your teenagers are. We have some data in a little bit actually about that. But it's also just a harder platform to deal with, as there's less just general posts, and content kind of goes away after a day. So you have to be very active on it if you're going to be able to do Snapchat. But there may be a way to do it. We've tried. It's been difficult. I'm sure there's definitely room for people to have a team that does Snapchat really well. Tumblr is another blog service that you can use, sort of the microblogging. I don't know what they used to call it, but now it's its own kind of realm of the internet. But we definitely have a Tumblr. We don't care necessarily nearly as much as what happens to it, because we know that largely our sponsors and principals and administration and things aren't on Tumblr. So that's one where we let a lot more of the FRC memes or any of that stuff kind of go, or just cute pictures of puppies, whatever goes on our Tumblr. But there's definitely room for more teams to be on Tumblr and using it well. Pinterest and Musical.ly are two that I kind of know about but have not done much with.
We've done a lot on those.
No. So there's definitely room for teams to do a lot more on other social networks, right? There are international ones. There are social networks in China and Russia and Brazil and all over the place that teams could potentially go and spread first even farther and spread their message. It's just kind of to figure out where you want to put your resources and what ability you have to communicate with those people.
So key trends in social media. This is why you need to be active on social media. The gap between television and online consumption is really narrowing. And 2/3 get their news on social media. And so we'll be talking about something in the lab, and some of the kids are like, oh yeah, I saw it on Snapchat, or oh, I got, there was on Instagram, and they'll get their news, on their phones. And this is the trend. So Twitter, YouTube, and Snapchat grew, and Twitter is seeing the largest growth right now.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot of growth in them getting news from there. So you're also able to interact with them in terms of getting out events, telling them about FIRST, possibly getting new members, mentors, etc. when we have so many more people joining those sites. When we're talking about specifically teenagers, though, I actually just got this morning, so I thought it would be fun to share. It seems like way more teenagers are moving towards Snapchat as their preferred social media, which, like we said before, if somebody can find a way to get on Snapchat more, we already see First Official doing that more. Their story has been funny more. They started kind of at the World Championship and before that as well, because they see that there are so many more students there. So if your goal is to start recruiting more, possibly just interacting with more students, Snapchat definitely may be a place to go. But you still have all the other ones growing in terms of just general population. So if you're trying to talk to other mentors or professionals where you're trying to get mentors or sponsors, some of the other social media websites might be better suited for that.
Yeah, Facebook, I think, has the largest number of users right now.
Right, yeah. So if you just the vast number of users, Facebook is definitely the place to be for just that. But you can definitely focus in on each one depending on what you're trying to do. Okay, so this is one of our biggest tricks. So we're kind of done talking about our specific websites that we use. And IFTT, which is if this, then that, is one of our most useful tools that I found when I was doing some personal stuff a long time ago, but we've been using it for the team social media. So we have our own team, if this, then that account. And it basically allows us to automate a lot of our social network posting. So we can, as soon as we post something to Instagram, that photo gets posted to Twitter with whatever our description was as well. And then anything that goes to Twitter also gets posted to Facebook. And that kind of chain allows anyone to see, even if they don't choose to be on Instagram, if, you know, some of the kids' grandparents are on Facebook or something, they can still see the photo that gets posted on Instagram, no matter what platform they choose, basically. I think it also goes to our Tumblr, too, at this point. So a lot of it gets automated for some of our more basic posts. But you do still have to choose for some of the more important things how exactly you want to format everything. Because even if you post, say we make a video and we just post it to YouTube, if all we do is send that link out, it's not going to get nearly the interaction as if we were to also upload it natively as a video to Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. So all of them will promote like their native upload videos over just links to YouTube or something like that. So a lot of times we'll end up, for something big like that, the video we showed earlier, we made sure that we had a format and a version for it on every platform. We actually made different renders because like Instagram, for one, you have to like render out to square. So we had to learn how to even learn some new things on how to do that to make what we wanted and to make it all a native platform so they could actually get more attention on those platforms. You can also use if this and that for a lot of other things, not just your social media. We use it for some of our documentation. So when we do post to Instagram or when we post to Twitter, those all automatically get saved to a Google Drive document so that we have that documentation. So we have links to everything. We know what day we posted them on. We can see kind of what's going on. And it's just easier to pull from than having to go and dig back through your Instagram or Twitter account to find some picture. So we use it a lot to make just a lot of our automation a lot easier without having to constantly be switching apps on our phones or trying to do it on a computer. A lot of the basic stuff that we're doing on a daily basis is just a lot easier when you're able to automate it. So photo galleries are probably one of the biggest things that we weren't doing in 2012, and we absolutely should have been. It has made the social media process so much easier by collecting all of our photos and video, because that's one of the easiest way to engage people is to be visual. If you're just sending out text all the time, people aren't going to engage with it nearly enough. They may just be scrolling by it, but it's a lot easier for them to stop and watch a quick video or see a photo. So we started originally with Flickr, which is a Yahoo service that you can upload a bunch of photos to, and you can kind of organize them there, keep track of them. Something like a terabyte of photos for free or something like that. So it's not likely that you're going to fill it. It works well enough for most teams. Quite a few teams are on it. And you can basically organize it by event, and you can keep your old photos so that when you need to make some content, if you need to make a promotional video for something, if you need to find a Throwback Thursday post, if you need to find something like that you need to get out to Twitter, Instagram, somewhere, you have all that stuff documented, ready to go, and anybody on your team can access it. What we found, I think, about a year and a half ago?
About a year and a half ago.
If you want to pull up our photo gallery on SmugMug, we moved everything from Flickr, which was a bit of a process. So if you do end up starting on Flickr, just know it does take some work to download everything back and get it onto another album service or gallery service. But we moved everything to SmugMug just because it allowed us to have a lot more personalization. So we have a lot more folders, a lot more galleries, and the tagging aspect of it allows us to sort all of our photos very quickly. So now we're to the point where we have keywords for every single team that we've competed with, basically. So if we've taken a photo of your robot and we tagged it with your keyword, you can easily just go into our photo gallery and find every photo we have of your team. We can find photos of different robot mechanisms, and we were able to kind of just make the organization system a lot easier and make it a lot more useful that we're taking all of these photos. Like most teams are taking scouting photos of all the other robots, but then they end up getting deleted at the end of the event or just sitting on somebody's hard drive for too long.
But we know that a lot of our photos have ended up in other teams' yearbooks, and people just are very happy to get photos and video.
Right. So we can be helping other teams. It's more of a service for other teams as well, where they can very easily see all of the photos from that we possibly have from them, and then they can take them. We're pretty open about it. We've told everybody if they want to use those photos, feel free. So like she said, we've seen them in yearbooks, we've seen them in other production. That's totally great with us. We want the word spread as much as we can. But just having it as for ourselves has been amazing because we were able to use that anytime we need to do media creation. We can tag certain ones as like promo so that we know that those are the ones we think are pretty good photos of our team. We have photos of all of our volunteers when we need to do like volunteer appreciation things. We have all of those ready to go, and it's much easier to do.
But our favorite new thing that we started over the summer was the robot mechanisms. Right?
Oh, right. Yeah. So with the mechanism
cool.
library, someone actually just suggested it right before we were heading off to IRI. Akash did, who's one of on the who's on Chief, and was asking for somebody to have more photos and how to do that well. And we took that over and basically were able to take a lot of photos of people's robots and then document them as like shooter or gear intake, so we can have just individual galleries where you can go through and see everybody's gear intake or shooter or drivetrain from this year. And we're kind of going back to from our old photos from the past too and trying to sort those through too.
It's really useful because when you get a game and they announce a new game, they're like, oh, remember in 2014 we had that drivetrain or we had that mechanism, and then they can go back into that particular gallery and look at and see how they created it.
Right. So it's been a big help to our team, and hopefully it helps other teams too. And a lot of like that's kind of our mission, is anything that we do that helps our team, if we can put it out and make it public and make it help other teams, we're more than happy to do it. Okay, so the next part of this is not necessarily important for your day-to-day activity as it is for when you start thinking about awards and start thinking about how to get more engagement. So you want to start looking at metrics. And largely, if you create your accounts well and you create them the same way that a business would, most of the sites have pretty good analytics or insights or some term like that for each of them that you can go in and see how well your posts are doing every week, how many people have watched your videos, how many people have clicked on all of your links. You can get a lot of very detailed information about what you're posting. So whether that can change some of your posting habits, but it can also help you when you want to be putting it into your Chairman's Award essay or something like that, where you want to say, we've had this many people, we have this many minutes viewed on YouTube, right? That's something that's pretty easy to get if you have a lot of YouTube videos. You can, or just of any YouTube videos, you can go see how many minutes people have watched all of your YouTube.
And it's helpful when we're doing outreach. People can see like, oh, this looks interesting. And when we're at events like Comic Palooza or Maker Faire or somewhere where they're not familiar with robotics, they see something interesting, they'll click on it, and then we get a new follower or they're engaged.
So there's some links here about some of the analytics tools that we use. Most of the ones built in are enough for FRC teams. I don't think there's real value in people paying for different analytic services. Those exist for pretty much all of them. I haven't seen anything where I'm like, oh, wow, we really need to pay money for those. But there's several that are good enough that can get you how many posts you've had on Facebook or Twitter, et cetera. And that's pretty solid for most teams. That's all you really need to be able to put into your award submissions, and also just for you to get a better understanding of how to better engage people on social media.
So we encourage you to use popular tags and hashtags to stay connected and join the conversation. So when you're posting on social media, use some of the commonly used tags and hashtags when it applies to robotics, and pay really close attention to what's trending in your city and the community. So we'll do Spectrum 3847. Sometimes we'll do First in Texas. We'll do First Official. We'll do OMG Robots. We started something new this year, the Live Robots. And then if we're at an event, we'll do STEM or Girls in STEM, Inspire. If we're at Houston, sometimes we'll do that. It just depends on what is trending, and we'll look that up before we're at an event.
And that is one of the things that's somewhat weird with the automated posts. So if we tag someone in a Twitter post, it's probably not going to be tagged in the Facebook post that follows, the automated one. So what we'll end up doing a lot of times is going into the comments and just either tagging it or even editing the post and tagging them properly. Just because the different services use different tags, or different teams have wildly different usernames on different services, which preferably, if you're going to make all new, try to keep them close to the same. It's easier on other people trying to engage with you. If your FRC team XXX on some event, be the same on the other one, please. That makes it a lot easier for everyone else. Okay, I think that's the end of our presentation. I think we're going to get back to some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for that. It was really excellent. There's a lot that I think teams have to learn from this. I definitely learned a lot. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I thought it was a great presentation. Even, excuse me, even the parts about different applications you can use to go across all your social media platforms. That was huge for me and something that I'll definitely bring back to my team. So thank you for that information. That was great.
Welcome.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at our first question. It looks like we got one in from the Twitch chat. This comes from FRC3847, who I think is the Tewksbury Titans. And their question was, should we focus on getting the support of other FRC teams or potential sponsors?
That's a good question. It really determines on who you want your audience to be. If your goal is to eventually get sponsors, you may be generating your post to show more of what are the benefits for the sponsors to potentially sponsoring your team, like showing really happy-faced kids, showing your other sponsor logos on your robot and on your events, things like that that'll potentially draw in more sponsors. You also may choose a different platform. You may want to start doing more on LinkedIn, where you have a lot more corporations. If your goal is to get support from FRC teams, that may be Facebook or Twitter, where you have a lot more team engagement, and you may be posting different content. So it really depends on what your goals are for using social media.
That makes total sense. Thanks for that. Our next question comes from some of our RSN members. They ask, should I make accounts on all platforms, even if we don't have enough people to manage across that many, or should we just focus on the social media platforms that we can devote time to?
Okay, so first of all, my philosophy is that you create an account on whatever platforms you can, just to make sure you lock in your username. So we literally have accounts on things that we'll never use again, probably. Like we have accounts on like foreign social media accounts and things and all sorts of stuff. We have Spectrum 3847 lockdown. That's more just in case it ever becomes popular. We don't know. I didn't think Snapchat was ever going to take off. I was wrong. But we had a Spectrum Snapchat long before I ever started using Snapchat.
So the answer is yes.
Yeah, having accounts is great. And then if you can use places like If This Then That or any other ways to automate it, where you may just be posting on Twitter, but it may be going to multiple accounts, even if you're not actively checking on them. Probably want to make sure you're getting notifications. The other thing about making a lot of accounts, though, please make sure they're made under an email that either your entire team has or someone who's going to be with your team a lot. There's multiple accounts where you end up, somebody made a Twitter account. The only way to unlock the password is to go to their email. They're no longer with the team. And now this weird team Twitter account is just dormant and no one has access to it anymore and they have to create another one or something like that. Try to avoid that as much as you can.
That's pretty good. And I think you're also saying you guys even have an account, or we were talking before the show, you were saying you even have an account on the Russian equivalent of Facebook.
Yeah, we went on there once. We were looking at the most popular social media like sites around the world, and we literally made an account on basically all of them. So also whatever the one they use in Brazil is too. I don't remember what it's called at the top of my head, but there's lots of them.
We have it.
We have a document somewhere that has our usernames and passwords for them. Like there's a lot of them.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to take a look at our next question. Is there a reason to tailor the content I post for the audience of each social media platform, or should it all be the same across all platforms?
So this goes back kind of our answer to the first question. It really depends on your goals, right? So if it's something small where we're just posting a photo from an event or just telling everybody, hey, we're at this event, that may be the same. So we may start that on Instagram because we know it automates out to everything else, and we may not worry about editing it or changing that across the other platforms. If it's something where we know we want to get a lot of engagement, we'll make sure to have a native video on Facebook. We'll make sure that the tags are right so that they're tagging the first official account on Facebook. We'll tag RoboSports Network, whatever we're trying to do. We'll make sure all the tags are right so that other people can share it easier, so that people on our team can share it easier, or alumni, whatever it is that we're trying to do. If you really want it to spread, making it for each platform is more important. But if it's just something that's a quick update that you're not too worried about, it's just a photo or something, that can be the same across all the platforms, and that you can automate.
Yeah, that makes sense, because on different platforms, some hashtags come up with what you want and some don't and all that. So yeah. That totally makes sense. Our next question comes from the Twitch chat, and it comes from Philip8880. He says, what metrics do you use to show you are meeting the mission and vision of FIRST to judges and sponsors?
That is a really hard question. That's something I think we're still working on ourselves, honestly. some of it is just trying to prove engagement, right? So that's showing how many followers you have, minutes watched, and like how many different links and stuff you can click on the different platforms. Those are all useful. I don't know what necessarily proves that we're getting the word out, right? It's very hard to prove whether we're showing this to the same 3 people who watch all of our stuff, or dozens of new people. I don't know. So it's very tricky to prove that, and I'm not sure we have an answer to that yet either. If someone does, please let us know.
Yeah, that's it's always hard to figure out if you are actually engaging folks. That's definitely tricky.
And even sometimes, even with the amount of people you get, like we'll send stuff out, like we'll make blog posts and things that I don't think anybody ever paid attention to. It only got a few views, but then we'll get people in person come up and thank us for them, and I'm like, okay, I guess people are actually reading these. I should probably keep doing like things that we had no idea people actually cared about. So even if it sometimes feels like you're just putting stuff out there and no one's paying attention, somebody probably is. There are a lot of diehard firsters, so especially if you're putting out stuff that's very related to FRC and robot things, or if you have some cool idea, somebody's probably paying attention to it.
When we were at Worlds, there were teams that from different countries were coming and go, oh my gosh, we were so happy that you put this on the blog because we learned how to build, this mechanism, whatever it was. Or
random small things you don't think about. We did, what was it, in 2013, we posted how to mount a sim to a versaplanetary, and it was just something one of our kids kind of came up with. And we had no idea it was going to be useful. And then we find out, like, if you were calling Vex at the time, they were reverting back to our blog post as the instructions on how to do it. So, like, that kind of thing. So,
oh, wow.
Because no one, they eventually made a part for it, and it was all good. But we were one of the first people to figure it out. And we didn't have no idea. We were just like, oh, we think this is kind of cool. And it ended up being useful.
But we try a lot. I mean, it's a daily, we work on our social media, whether producing content or taking photos or working on videos, that the team works on that pretty much every day.
Yeah, and even if it is something that you strike out a lot and things aren't useful or people don't care about it, but maybe somebody will eventually. We've had stuff that even like chief posts or something that had 0 replies for months, and then we find out one person was like, oh, this was exactly what I needed, thank you. Like, you'll get a little note or something. So that's always great.
Nice. So let's move on to the next question real quick. We don't really have anyone interested in managing our social media or technical documentation. As a mentor, how can we help encourage this activity to help sustain our team skills and history?
So the way we do it, the way I normally do it, just this is more mentor philosophy than I think anything else, is kind of that same adage that you get from FIRST in general, is you get what you celebrate, right? So partly I have to do a lot of it. Like, I'll start a lot of it. So one, I can figure it out and figure out how to teach it, right? I did not necessarily go into this wanting to know how to use Twitter or Facebook or anything, because I don't really care. But it was important for the team. Like, my own social media accounts are not very good. But I'm much better at doing it for the team because it matters. And then for the team, you're able to, once you do it a lot and you're excited about it and you talk to the kids about it and you bring it up a lot, then they eventually go, oh, can I get that on my phone? And then you share the password with them, you get them going, you train them how to do it, and they eventually take it over. So like the blog's a good way to do that, where you can kind of have it, they don't have to feel overwhelmed. So if you have a blog already, and I kind of make sure it's maintained reasonably, it's not perfect. But they can take on different series. We have people who run off and do things that are way more important. So like our entire How I Work series, which is awesome and I love it, was pretty much all student run. Like, that was somebody wanted to do it and they took it, and then they actually passed it down to another student, which we have to find a new student because that student finally graduated. So like that one's getting passed down even farther. So a lot of those can be passed down once they get excited about it. So you, as a mentor, you kind of have to make sure that you know what you're doing enough to get them going, and then also be excited about it, get them enthusiastic, and then hopefully they'll take it on. And it ebbs and flows. So we definitely have, like, our Tumblr is not active right now, but a couple years ago it was, because we had some student who was running it, and it's kind of whatever they're interested in. We kind of make sure there's a baseline as the mentor group. So like we'll make sure Twitter and Facebook are kind of updated. So those are our most important ones. But then at events, we'll make sure students are doing things. We'll try to engage students to kind of take it on the more active role every single day. But it's
Snapchat is coming, trending right now, and people are trying to do the Snapchat story, but they're already scouting. So if they're taking photos and they're already out there, that's part of. We use a lot of the photos and video when they're out scouting.
Yeah, we try not to duplicate work as much as we can. So if they're already taking photos of robots or taking the photos of something, just tell them, hey, you have the password, go and tweet it out or whatever you want to do, or get it up to somebody else, and we'll do it at first if you're a little scared too. You kind of have to make sure not worried about doing something bad. That's part of it. They don't want to like make the team look bad, but you can tell them, hey, this is easy. Make it kind of formulaic. We'll have different things that they'll help run where they can schedule tweets too. So on TweetDeck, one of the nice things is you can schedule stuff to go out. So even if they don't want to post it immediately, they can schedule it, and I can go look through all the scheduled tweets and make sure that nothing bad's in there. That makes them feel a little bit at ease too.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a follow-up question for you too is, as a teacher that leads a team as well, how do you manage what students have access and which don't, and that whole thing? Because that's tough depending on the team you're on. So how do you manage that?
It really depends on. So it very much depends on the team. Some of that is just pretty much anyone on our team can get it if they wanted to. They would need to. They don't even necessarily need to ask. I think at some point, if they're on the drive, they could get to our file that kind of has everything. But most of them don't think about it or don't know where that file is. Or don't search for it. Most of the time, it ends up just being people ask for it, and then we make sure we're giving out to people we trust. And it's, again, part of it is you get what you celebrate. If you encourage the person you really think is able to do it and do it well, they're the one who's going to pick it up and want to do it. If you don't encourage it for another student, they may not want to do it.
Right.
Like as a mentor, you can kind of, what you say to which kid and how you announce it and how you choose it. If you put out a blanket statement, everyone must tweet, you may end up getting some bad stuff. I've fallen into that trap before with other things.
But we had a kid that was during post Hurricane Harvey, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna go and we're gonna go Facebook Live, and and he's going through it where we were working, and he was really excited to do that. So I think it depends on what the event is, and it depends on the student.
Yeah, and we can have some of it. We'll hand them our devices too sometimes, where it's like, oh, you want to do this? Take my phone and go do it. You don't have to worry about getting it all set up or going through any of the initial kind of the learning curve, and they can do it really quickly. And then if they get excited about it, you can work with them to get it set up on their own, or if they have one. We have some cheap team stuff too. So we have some like $10 phones that we have that are $10 Android phones that we have like the team Snapchat on. So if you're in the lab, it has Wi-Fi, you can just Snapchat from there if you wanted to.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's neat. Our next question comes from RoboTier5291 on the Twitch chat. Shout out to Imperius over in Israel. They say, what do you do when basically things in your school are blocked social media wise? And the examples they put in their post are things like Reddit, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. And this is something that happens at a lot of schools.
Right.
Is there alternatives that you can use to try and get your posts out there?
Nothing that probably doesn't break your terms of service with your school Wi-Fi and things. So if you're using the school internet, you have to follow their rules, right? Like I'm not going to encourage you to do anything with proxies or anything like that. And I don't know how it is in Israel necessarily, but for the US, if you can do it on your cell phone, they normally can't block your, right? They can't block your 3G or 4G internet, whatever you have. So that's one way. And a lot of times at events, that's what we're doing anyway. Just because we don't have Wi-Fi access at most of the regionals or anything like that.
But the TweetDeck is really useful. If you're doing it from home, you can schedule a lot of stuff.
Some of it you can just do at home. So you can, if you're getting all the photos and you're collecting them all, then you can have it set up at home. You can schedule things on TweetDeck, so you can have it be posted when you may not even be awake, right? So we'll often schedule things where they just come out at random times, just so we know that would be a more popular time, but maybe be at work or in a meeting, we can have it scheduled to go out automatically.
Excellent. So, kind of a related question from that, also from the Twitch chat, Azatoth _ writes, how do you deal with lack of cell service at events? That access problem is a little bit more difficult than
I don't think we've had that much of a problem at our events. We're lucky enough to be at relatively large convention centers and stuff that have decent service. I don't know the last event I was at where my phone didn't get internet.
Yeah, even when we were on the bus going all the way up to IRI and back, we had cell service, so we were posting pictures and video.
Yeah, I think we also know who on our team has different providers. So every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, I don't have anything, like more not necessarily for social media, but I've definitely had to do that with like navigation before. I was like, oh, my phone dropped. I have no more maps. Someone give me phone that has maps, and we've gotten that to work. So if you have different providers on your team, you can figure out who actually does have internet. But largely, I don't know which events anymore have that bad of cell service, but I guess there are still some.
Well, we've had at times, though, if you're in an event, I've got my laptop and we've just paid to we've paid.
Oh, for the Wi-Fi,
For the
right?
Wi-Fi,
Depending on if you're at a big enough convention center and things, right? So if it's $10 or $15 for a day, we may be able to do that as a team pretty easily.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. There's some events up here in New York where the cell service isn't great. The college Wi-Fi may be blocked and that kind of thing where you can't get access. And there's got to be a student where one version of a cell phone plan will work, and that has come in for us many times. So that's a good point to bring up.
Absolutely. And we have a quick correction from Twitch chat. 5291 is also an FTC team in Michigan, Team Tower. They do First Tech Challenge, who also they also have a lot of social media needs. So it's good to hear that other programs other than First Robotics Competition are tuning in as well. Let's take a quick look at the next question. Let's see, this one also comes from FRC3847. Other than WordPress, are there any other website creators that you would consider as good alternatives?
So our original website before we moved to hosting our own WordPress, so we don't use the WordPress service. Like WordPress, you can install on your own servers or whatever you have. So we have a hosting company. We host a WordPress site there. We were using Drupal before that. Largely, it's just as powerful. WordPress was just easier for us to be able to get students past the learning curve of using it. So we wanted to have a lot more people working on it when we were doing it. And WordPress was just easier at the time. And kind of the one student who was driving the whole thing wanted to move to WordPress too. So that was a big part. But we were on Drupal before that. And any of the content management systems will work. Those are the two I know about, but I assume there's more. There always seem to be more. I haven't looked recently.
And, then there's always building your own website from flat HTML and doing the JavaScript and the CSS on the back end. And that's definitely another alternative, if folks feel comfortable learning that and doing that. Or
if they even just want to learn and experiment, there's no problem doing that as well. Like we've had people attempt it where I was like, yeah, if you can make it better than our website, or if you can add on additional resources, feel free to try to learn it. It'll help you along the way.
Yeah, from a teacher standpoint, it's always interesting asking those type of questions with kids and seeing where they'll take it, because you never know what they'll end up coming up with. And sometimes really most times, their ideas are really, really good. You never know what's going to happen. So our next question is, are old school press releases still relevant to send to local news outlets now with social media being what it is?
Yes, actually we do both.
Yep.
We will do a press release and include photos and captions because some of the local papers love that content. They will just take it verbatim, pick it up, drop it. And then for magazines that are online, we will send them the photo and short blurbs, and they'll use that as well. So we do both.
Right, especially some of the really smaller papers. So it's harder to get into the Houston Chronicle, but most of the areas, at least in our area, have local neighborhood papers. Some of the smaller towns around us where we may have an event. Those papers are a lot easier to get into, and a lot of them will take press releases and use it either verbatim or take clippets out of it, and they really like it.
Yeah, I would agree. The local papers are a great resource. They love the content, being invited to places too. They may or may not show up, but being invited always makes them feel good. And like you talked about in your presentation, the tagging them in social media too helps out a lot. So right. That's a big plus.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I worked at a newspaper for a long time. It was always surprising how easy it was sending an actual press release. And a bit of a personal follow-up question on this one. What do you guys find is the best format for writing up that press release?
That I'll leave for Sue.
As far as?
Sort of a template. Do you use some sort of template in-house? You have boilerplate about the team, about the competition.
Yes,
do you
yes, all of that. So we'll have some sort of interesting caption. Spectrum 3847 wins a gold as the finals of this tournament, and then we'll put in a little blurb about the event that we're at, and if we won something, or if we're doing an outreach. Like for instance, over the summer we helped launch a STEM camp at Microsoft for the A-Lead school district. So we'll put that in, some photos, And then we'll do a boilerplate information always about the team, upcoming events that we're at, and some statistics, and then links to our website.
Yeah, if you want to see an example, so the presentation will go up, and one of the links in there is to our TRI social media packet, and at the bottom of that, we have all the social media links as well, but we also have the full press release, so that teams coming to TRI could have just taken it, edited what they want, put in some of their own team information, and sent that out to their local papers as well. So that was something we did for our event. You have a kind of an example of what one of our press releases looks like already. There's also, most of them get up on our blog and stuff as well, too, so there's a lot of them out there.
Excellent, excellent. So let's take a look at our next question. Where does chiefdelphi.com fit into this equation? Is it still relevant in an age of Facebook and Snapchat?
So I'm an old timer. This will be year 16 for me. So I've been on Chief for a very long time. So it's still relevant to me. I still check it nearly every day. I don't think there's many days where I don't. But that's not the case for a lot of people. So it really, again, depends on who your audience is. If you're looking for the people who care about FIRST and they are going to be reading it in the off season, then yeah, you need to post it on Chief or people just aren't going to see it. If your goal is to get the general community, no one who doesn't know about FRC is really going to be on Chief. So it really just comes back to that same idea: is who is your audience? What are you trying to do? And where do you want to post it? So if we're posting robot designs and we want comments from other teams, we're clearly going to post them on Chief still. And we'll have links out to our blog with more information, et cetera, like that. But if we're looking to get stuff out to the general population, or if we need just Houston people, that may not get up to Chief.
Okay.
And then you also have Reddit and Discord and everything else too. So there's a lot of different places you can interact with the FRC community now. Find one that you like, find one that you respect and want to be a part of, and get talking to people. So hopefully you can learn more.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It's always cool being a member for Chief Delphi with you for so long, just seeing the age change and how does it still relate, because it still does, and it's just finding the best application. So for our final question of the night, the question we're going to ask you, which is a great question for all teams. My team doesn't have access to high-end tools like Adobe Suite to do videos and other things. How can we produce cool content for our social media too?
All right, so this is actually a really good question for us, because we rarely use the Adobe Suite. So some of our school computers do, and I think I've done a couple things in Photoshop this year that had to do it, but largely we use completely free tools. So our two image processing apps are GIMP and Inkscape, and we do almost everything for the team in there. So all of our logo design and things for the team are done in Inkscape and always have been. Most of our photo editing, we have a couple kids who are pretty good at GIMP, and they use that. And then all of our video editing now is done in DaVinci Resolve, which is made by Blackmagic, and the regular version is completely free. So we do all of it with relatively free tools. Like every once in a while, like I said, we'll have to pull up Photoshop or Inkscape, but or Illustrator, but really rarely. And we haven't done anything in Premiere or After Effects in a really long time. So yeah, there are definitely free tools you can use as long as you have a reasonably up-to-date computer that you should be able to run video editing on. And even if you can't, there's tons you can do just on a phone now where you can do most video editing stuff. GoPro has a pretty good video editing app. Several of them do that. You can be making whatever content you want to do. There's ways to produce it, and there's ways to produce it relatively easily.
Excellent. How do you guys end up training new students on that software?
Good question. So that comes through mostly just when either we're working on something and they get interested, and then we kind of show them what we're doing, or they have some idea of something they want to do, and then we kind of push them in the right direction. They kind of learn by their own, ask us questions, that kind of thing. I don't think we've had any direct training on any of our media stuff where we have like everybody together. So like in the fall, we'll have direct training on SolidWorks, where everybody on the team is going to know a little bit about SolidWorks. I'm not too worried about everyone on the team learning how to do image editing, but if they want, it's a really good skill. I'd like them to. I mean, I learned it in high school and I've been using it ever since.
But we will do a training this fall on how to take photos.
Yeah, right? that one we're starting this year.
That one we're starting in videos.
We've got some weird photos coming back. Like even just scouting photos. We're like, what did you try to take with that? Why is this here? So just framing shots, making sure lighting is reasonable, getting team numbers, the kind of specific things you need to do to make a useful photo that everyone can do now with most phones. Even if you have a 4-year-old phone, it still takes a good enough photo.
Excellent, excellent. And you guys also have a social media resource paper as well, don't you?
Oh, you mean from the TRI event? I think that's what they're talking about.
TRI
Yeah.
social media.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That was for the off-season event
Right.
that we did
No
in June.
problem. We've produced a lot of stuff. We probably have something else available too that I just don't even remember. So we do have the social media guide for just that specific event. So that was to make sure they had which hashtags to use, which the whole press release, a lot of the information. So we're making sure they're getting the right information out, right? What dates what dates it's going to be held, where. Make sure every team, if they're going to be sending stuff out, we want them to get the accurate information.
But we welcome it. If you've got questions, feel free to email us.
Right, or anywhere on social media too. We're available. We also do have our team produced a brand standard guide similar to several other teams. Holy Cows had one. I think we modeled ours after. So that helps make sure people are using your logo and identity properly. Especially people more on your team than anything else, so they can figure out what colors to use and everything. So if you have some new people, you can kind of make it easier on them to start producing content that looks similar to the rest of the team.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. There's been so much good conversation, good content coming out of this show. I want to thank all of our viewers out there tonight for watching. Thank you for asking such excellent questions. Follow us on Twitter, follow us on Facebook. I think we're also on Snapchat. Make sure you tune in next time. This recording is going to be posted on YouTube. You're also going to be able to find this recording, the presentation, and some other documents posted in the FIRST resource library, which you can find on the FIRST Inspires website. And we'll see you in 2 weeks, where we're going to be talking about... trying to remember what we're talking about in 2 weeks. For the next episode of Behind the Lines. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you then.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.